Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing the Radeon RX 6600 XT in Ghost of Tsushima. This one is the Afox model of the card. We are running it with the latest AMD drivers, and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power Up's GPU. The resizable bar is also enabled, and we got 8GB in this GPU. And over on the left, we're pairing it with a Ryzen 9 7950X3D with half of its cores disabled, which is basically the same as a Ryzen 7 7800X3D. This is to avoid CPU bottlenecks. Of course, you don't need such a beefy CPU to pair with a 6600 XT and achieve the same results. And over on the memory tab, we're using 32GB of DDR5 6000 MHz RAM in dual channel CL30. Let's get into it, shall we? And let's go over the settings first. I'm starting at 1080p resolution, and I'm also going to test this one at 1440p and 4K. And I'm using FSR3's native AA. This is still native resolution. It's just applying the anti-aliasing. It looks way better than like TAA, SMA82X and stuff. So it's a good implementation here. And it only loses like 1 FPS or 2 compared to TAA, by the way. And on the graphics settings, we're using the high settings preset. And whoa, that's sick, guys. We're touching 100 FPS at 1080p high settings. What? This shouldn't really be that intensive of an area, you know? Because it's getting really high FPS. I wasn't expecting this. It's pretty much the same as the 6700 XT with the very high settings instead of the high settings, and that's pretty impressive for the 6600 XT over here. Damn! It's not really dropping even here. Look at that. Fighting these guys. Oh boy. Come on, come on. Okay. All good, all good, all good. Just stop it. Stop it. You. Okay, okay. Let's go. Fight the bastard. Fight the bastard. Come on. The big one. Okay, now it's this one. The leader. Yeah, very easy. Very easy. The fat one was definitely a better fighter than you, so-called leader. Goodbye, Bob. There we go. Well, moving on. As I was saying, this is super impressive, and I wasn't really expecting it, guys. Coming from a 6600 XT, I thought we'd get like 70, 80 frames per second maximum, okay? Yet we're averaging almost 90 frames per second. Oh my god. What is going on, right? So yeah, needless to say, if you have this GPU, you might even want to play it on very high settings instead of high settings. Aside from the textures, because if you bump them up to very high, there is the chance that it will swap into the RAM, and it will lower the performance by quite a lot, and also introduce a lot of stuttering and stuff like that. And it goes by like the VRAM allocation as well. It's at 7 gigabytes roughly. So yeah, very high textures would definitely increase that to the point where it would spill. That's not ideal, but you know, the good thing is, I guess, that very high textures looks very similar to the high textures in this game, and both look pretty meh, as you can see. Like, it's certainly an art style look, right? It's not going for that realistic look for sure. Now, I'm here trying to make it drop a little bit, but I can't seem to make it drop, guys. Like, it is super stable. I don't know how this is doing so well. I also tested the RTX 3060, which should be the competitor in performance to this one, and that did way worse. Although I didn't test it in exactly the same area. Why are you shooting at me? I wasn't even attacking your guys yet. Seriously? Oh boy. Yeah, down into the 70s at times, as you could see. So maybe in like the same scenario, same area where I tested the RTX 3060, it would drop a little bit more in performance, this one. But it's still super impressive. I don't think I saw up to 90 frames per second with that GPU. Alright, here we go. This is a bit more intensive of an area, usually, and it's dropping into the low 80s, so it's not really a bit more intensive of an area. Actually, I don't even know why it dropped in one of my videos around here, because apparently this area is just running the same as the previous areas where we've been to. Alright, so what I'm gonna do next is play on very high, because it can, right? Let's just use texture quality on high. Here we go, we're back here in the temple area. I'm gonna start counting our FPS. It's getting 70 frames per second right here, 60s, okay? So it gets way more intensive on very high, as you can see, but the graphics look pretty similar. So I think I would just stick with the high settings, honestly, guys. Yeah, maybe we have a little bit more particles flying around and stuff, but it's not really that noticeable if you don't see things side by side, honestly, and it still looked very, very good even at the 1080p high settings. So that's what I'd go with, although this is still pretty impressive. It hasn't really dropped down into the 50s yet, right? Maybe it did back there, but I didn't really notice it, and it certainly feels smooth still, you know, even if it dips down sometimes into the 50s. It's not the end of the world. You can still play like that, I think. Look at that, 60 to 70 most of the time. What the heck, right? This is really nice. It is a little bit slower than like a 4060 or a 3060 Ti, but not by much. And it's usually, again, on par with the 3060, which is much slower than the 3060 Ti, for sure. 70 FPS near the water. Water is not intensive in this game, apparently, at least for this card. I've seen 1 or 2 GPUs dropping FPS near the water, but yeah, not this one. And over here, it does dip down into the 50s sometimes. I saw like 59. But honestly, if I wasn't staring at the frame time graph or the on-screen display with the FPS there, I wouldn't really notice that it's dropping sometimes. It drops to like the mid-50 that you can see, 55, 56. Yeah, not a problem. I mean, if you want to game at very high settings in this one, 53, lower 50s at times, you can certainly do so. Like, it's a single-player game. You're likely not going to feel much of a slowdown anyways. And the frame pacing and frame time are very, very stable, so it feels great. Although, maybe we should try some frame generation just to check it out a little bit. I don't know why with AMD GPUs the game has always been crashing whenever I go into the settings menu, so I gotta change things in the launcher. Okay, here we go. Frame generation is enabled at the moment. FSR native AA still. And look at that. It's a little more shimmery for sure. I can definitely tell in these fields, actually, with lots of moving vegetation, you know. It definitely is a bit pixelated at times. But we're now getting above 60 FPS 100% of the time. Would I prefer this to the native resolution stuff, which drops to like 53 at minimum? No. There's also the added input lag from frame generation, of course, which doesn't feel as good as just native 60 FPS or 55 FPS even. So yeah, if you're interested in the results from FSR 3, well, here it is. It gets 100 FPS. It's like, what, 40 to 50 frames per second more than the native res stuff. But it's not really improving our gameplay experience, in my opinion. I would much rather go for the native stuff. All right, so we're going to move up to 1440p, and I will try it on the high preset first, okay? This is it, 2560 by 1440. Gonna disable the frame generation and play with native AA. It is still above 60 at 1440p high. Okay, it's dropping now. It's starting to drop a bit into the 50s, but whoa, that is so good. Like, seriously, I wasn't expecting this to outperform the 3060 by this much, guys. I thought we were in for a similar experience to that card. This is surprising. Holy crap. This is awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna skip the night off because, well, it's ugly. Also, I've been noticing that different times of the day actually do get you different results in FPS in the same area. Like this one right here is getting like 55 to 60 most of the time, just roaming around like this. And you'll see that during the day it should get a little bit higher, I think. No, it's the same thing, right? Never mind. I really thought I saw it being different previously. Maybe during sunset it dropped to like 52 instead of like 56 or 55. It's not really that big of a deal. So let's call Roach here. Hello, buddy. How's it going? Also, this lighting right now really reminds me of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You know, it looks very similar. Although I think the Valhalla actually looks better overall because of the higher resolution textures and just more realistic look. Still, art style-wise, this wins, I think. As you can see in this area, it's a little bit more intensive than where we started, right? It's dropping into the mid-50s very often. Even the averages don't reach 60 FPS. But that's to be expected. It's 1440p resolution after all. This GPU does pretty well sometimes in some games at 1440p, this being one of them actually, but it is really meant for 1080p gaming. Even AMD, when this came out, was targeting the 6600 XT at 1080p gaming, which was kind of weird and stupid actually for a $300 GPU or whatever it cost at the time of release. Yeah, people were like, yeah, it's 2020 or 2021 and they're releasing a 1080p card for $300? Seriously? Yeah, but it quickly dropped down in price, thankfully so. And now it's actually one of the best GPUs that you can buy right now. They're very well priced, especially on the used market. This one and the 6600, 6700 XT as well. It's probably time for us to move on, you know, 52 FPS right there. So it ranges from 50 to 60 most of the time using these settings. So I'll try frame generation now on top of native AA at 1440p. All right, here we go. Start counting the FPS, which for some reason, whenever I have frame generation enabled, it doesn't start counting the FPS right when I click. It's the second time around. It takes a little while. It's weird. Anyway, it feels... It doesn't really feel like 80 FPS. For some reason. This is really weird. Like, maybe it's the input lag, but I don't think so. With the 6700 XT, it definitely felt like it was actually running at above 60 Hertz, you know? Yeah, I could definitely feel that smoothness advantage here at 1440p, whereas right now, I don't. It just feels like 60 Hertz. Maybe it actually is running at 60 Hertz. The capture card sometimes misbehaves, you know, and sets the games at 1440p to like 60 Hertz, 4K to 120, 1080p to 120. It's very weird like that sometimes. So it could just be that, you know, especially after seeing there's a little bit of a stutter there. Ooh, it swapped some things that should be on VRAM into the RAM. That's why we got that little stutter. Goodbye, Bob. Nice to meet you again and kill you. Oh, not yet. Okay. Okay, you want to talk about it, buddy? No? Ah, I got it. I got it. So yeah. If you can get the advantages of a high refresh rate monitor, I think it's probably worth playing like this since the input lag is not too bad. But from what I'm seeing right now, it is not really that much better than what we saw previously at native resolution, even with like 50 plus FPS. So in this case, it could be the capture card once again, but I'm just not feeling it, honestly. Let's stop it there, though. I am gonna try FSR Quality next. Here we go, frame generation off. You could also utilize dynamic resolution scaling, and you know what? Oh no, but with the 6700 XT, it wasn't working for some reason. I'll need to check it real quick, guys, okay? It is definitely working right now. This feels way better than frame generation did, guys. Okay, so this is definitely the way to play this game at 1440p with this GPU. If you don't mind a little bit more pixelation and noise in your image. But I mean, on a 27-inch 1440p monitor, you might not even notice it since it should only be lowering the internal resolution by about like 10% or so. 15% maximum, I guess, to achieve these FPS. It's not really that big of a deal, honestly. It looks great, close enough to 1440p. Actually, it looks better than some games at native resolution right now, and it is using dynamic resolution scaling, so there's that. This is a pretty sharp game as long as you utilize FSR3 native AA or DLAA on the NVIDIA side of things, or I guess XeSS AA, which I haven't really tried yet. It's safe to say it won't really drop, guys. It's super stable like this. Very, very good indeed. Come on. Come on. Goodbye. Nice. And now you. Thank you. Good stuff. And now you. Thank you. No archers in your group? Ha. Noobs. Hello. 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 You're not gonna hit me anymore. What? Seriously? Oh, I didn't notice this one. God damn you! Just stop doing that. Come on. How are you so fast? Freaking Mongols! No! 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 No, 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 no. Don't you there. There we go. Don't you... Alright. All good. I wonder why that guy's just staring at us. Do something. Help your guys. You're the worst warrior ever. All right, goodbye and suffering to this one. Okay, so there really is no point in testing FSR 3 with quality because this works extremely well with the RS at 60, and if you want 60 FPS, well, that's the way to go. You already know. So let's go up to 4K then with native AA. Anyway, 30 FPS right here means that it will probably, definitely drop from 30 frames per second into the 20s sometimes, which is going to be a little bit terrible of an experience. I'm actually going to go to the other area with a lot of yellow leaves. And here we are, yep, 29, 28. Yeah, over here, it's actually below 30 all of the time. You can still do it, but obviously it's not ideal. So let's enable FSR Quality. Here we go, FSR 3.0 on Quality. By the way, I am not using frame generation here because with low FPS, frame generation will give you more FPS, but the actual input lag is going to be lower than the native FPS that you started with. So you don't want native like 22 FPS input lag with 40 frames per second, do you? So don't use FSR frame generation at 4K resolution unless you have a baseline of like 50 plus all of the time, and even then, not sure if I would utilize it. Anyway, FSR Quality thankfully looks really good at 4K res. It actually looks better than Horizon Forbidden West's implementation of FSR. Anyways, around here you can see it only drops into like the high 40s basically, so you can expect like 45 plus FPS 100% of the time with the 6600 XT at 4K high settings with medium textures and FSR Quality, which looks very, very sharp and detailed here at 4K resolution. You can spot a little bit of noise and shimmering, yes, but it's totally passable. It's to the point where I would actually enjoy the experience like this, and I'm very picky when it comes to shimmering and jaggy edges and stuff like that. So if I can play like this, you definitely can as well. I'm gonna skip the night once again. And well, there definitely aren't as many people playing at 4K res with the 6600 XT as like 1080p or 1440p, but it's still interesting to take a look at this stuff, you know? At least in my opinion it is. If you want to connect your PC to your TV, for example, to have that more cinematic experience, you could say, and play with a controller, well, this is what you'd get at 4K resolution with FSR Quality. It looks really great, and it gets around like 50 FPS most of the time. I'm not counting the averages or 1% lows at the moment, but that's what we get, basically. Oh yes, let's see it in this area, actually. 40s, down into the high 40s and low 50s still. Pretty impressive, right? I can't believe... This is surpassing my expectations by a lot, once again, as I told you. It's performing like the 6700 XT, but that was on very high, of course, and this is on high. I wouldn't have a problem playing like this. I would actually encourage you to play like this if you have a 4K monitor, right? And if you have a 4K TV and you're wondering if you should play some game on it, this is the one to play on it, in my opinion. It looks really, really nice at 4K. Alright, I guess the last thing to do is try it with the dynamic resolution scaling set to 60, FSR 3 on the upscaling, and see if it can hold 60 FPS at 4K with high settings. I don't think it will. Although it was pretty close, so I don't know at this point. 6700 XT had a little bit of trouble here at 4K. Yep, seems to be the same thing for this one. At 4K, these GPUs, for some reason, aren't really working properly with the SR. Do I say the SR a lot? It's the RS. Damn it. You know what I mean. Dynamic Resolution Scaling. DRS. Ugh. Dynamic Scaling Resolution. It also works, I guess. So it's good. It's good. Anyway, this is not the way to achieve 60 FPS, unfortunately. For that, you'd need to drop it down to like Performance FSR, which is definitely a bit rough, you know, in terms of visuals, so I wouldn't do that. Or maybe use Frame Generation, which worked quite well with the 6700 XT at 4K. Right. Yeah, this definitely feels like 80 FPS right now, guys. Okay, so I think what was happening is at 1440p, the actual capture card set the game to 60 Hz, and that's why it was feeling a little bit weirder with the frame generation from FSR, but now at 4K it's actually set to 120 Hz again, and it does feel better than just 60 FPS, you know? So, yeah, wow, okay. Even with 70 FPS, it's not too bad in terms of input lag, and you can feel the difference in smoothness as well. And I think, just like with the 6700 XT, this one is a better experience with FSR 3 quality plus frame generation at the 4K resolution. But this one is getting a little bit lower FPS than the 6700 XT did, even at very high settings, and this one being on high. So, oof, that's a huge change in weather, holy crap. So I think I would play this one with a controller. I would use these settings at 4K resolution because they look very similar to just FSR quality without FG. FG just makes it slightly softer, but I can't really notice that, especially because FSR introduces shimmering, which delivers a sharper image than a softer image, right? And then FSR frame generation is a little bit softer image. On top of that, sharper image, but more shimmery one. So it kind of cancels it out, right? It looks really good. That's what I'm saying. Okay, and with 65 plus FPS, it feels smooth. At 60 plus, obviously, on a 60 hertz monitor or higher. And I think with a controller, this will really shine because the input lag that you feel from mouse and keyboard here with frame generation, it wouldn't come through as much with a controller. So that's about it, guys. Another great showing here in this game. I really liked playing it on the 6600 XT and I liked seeing its performance. Let me know if this is what you expected. I certainly did expect less from this card and I am very impressed. And thanks very much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. Can I actually jump off of this? Wait a second. Yep. Oh, that was a terrible idea. Yep. Catch you in the next one. Love you all. Bye-bye.